What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. And this week on the channel, we actually passed a pretty significant milestone. We hit 100,000 views this week. And in order to celebrate, since I was on vacation, I decided I was going to take a trip up to the Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. You'll see a little bit of a video about that at the end, at this timestamp. And it was a little bit underwhelming. It's only a couple rooms, but there is a great collection there. And if you are in the area, I would highly suggest you stop by to see it. If for nothing else, then just to see the building where it all really kind of got off the ground. This was the first building that the TSR used outside of Gary's own home for their offices. So on my way up to do that, I stopped by my favorite game store. Yes, the Dice Dojo in Chicago, Illinois is absolutely wonderful. If you get a chance to swing in, definitely do so. They have games for days. They have a huge collection of open games that you can try out. They also have one of the best selections of board games, RPGs, and rare, hard-to-find stuff that you will ever find in a game store. Not to mention, it's in a nice neighborhood. So while I was making my trip, I came across a game that I've owned a couple of times, and I decided to pick up the new copy because it has been reprinted, which is why I sold my old copy, because I knew I wanted to get the newest printing. And today, I'm going to talk about that game. I'm going to talk about how it is the RPG that's not an RPG. I know that most of my viewers tend to be role players, not board gamers, but I think this one might be one that you want to check out, because if I couldn't play any other RPG, this would be the game that scratches those itches. And so without further ado, let's get into some Too Many Bones. Initially getting started with Too Many Bones can be a little bit intimidating because there's a lot of choices, and all of these choices come with a hefty price tag. So at the end of the video, at the timestamp listed now, I'm going to have a breakdown of what I think is essential that you need to buy and the order you should buy it, as well as what is maybe just optional. But that being said, let's get into what the game is. If you are unfamiliar with Too Many Bones, this is a story-light RPG adventure game with lots of interesting mechanical choices and some of the most overly produced components you're ever going to see. You play a gearlock, think a goblin / tinker gnome, attempting to save Obendar from one of the 7, at least in the base game, tyrants battling baddies all along the way. Over the course of a few hours, you will unlock new dice to roll, find loot, and meet interesting characters. At the end, you will have an often challenging battle with the tyrant. You play an entire campaign in a single sitting. Now, there is an expansion that will expand upon that, but we'll get to that later. You go from 0 to hero in one game session. You're going to play tactical battles with consequences and have the opportunity to learn new and exciting ways to build your gearlocks to meet the challenge. If I couldn't play any RPGs, this would be the game that I would play to satisfy those needs. You're going to like this game if you enjoy difficult tactical choices in battle, if you want to explore new ways to build a specific character to have the most optimal build or the most interesting build, or if you just enjoy some lighthearted humor in your games. You're not going to like this game, probably, if randomness is a large concern. You're rolling a lot of dice, there's a lot of randomness in this. If you think that Games Workshop needs more skulls in their 40K artwork, the aesthetic is probably not going to be for you. There is a childlike whimsy to this that at first was off-putting for me, but really did grow on me, and I actually really enjoy it now. Also, if you don't want to spend a car payment on a board game. But if you're still with me, good. We're going to get into what you need to play this game. There are currently 2 entry points to Too Many Bones, with a third to be coming once the Unbreakable Kickstarter is finished. So the core set on the left has 4 gear locks and 7 tyrants. The Undertow box on the right has only 2 gear locks and 3 tyrants, and the difference in price, the one on the left is $130, the one on the right is $90. So with that being said, it would seem like Undertow might be a good entry point to the system, as it is cheaper and a little bit less content to try to digest. I'm going to suggest that you don't do that. To me, this is going to be your best entry point, because the gear locks, by and large, are more interesting, they're more user-friendly, and you have more options as far as baddies to fight and tyrants to battle at the end. So what do you get in this box for $130? This is the newest printing of this, which is a much smaller box than the old one. The old one was meant to handle all of the content that could be added to it, and unfortunately they've added so much content that no longer works. You get a nice book. I will tell you, Too Many Bones has a reputation for being very hard to grok from the rule book, and I'm going to agree with that. And that's why I'm going to tell you, if you want to learn how to play this game, go check out the Chip Theory YouTube channel, specifically Liz Davidson's videos on the specific gear locks, because you're going to learn a lot more about how the game plays from that, and then you can use this book as a reference guide rather than how to play. You're going to get a number of trays for your dice. These are your attack and defense dice. And then you're going to get some multicolored dice that are going to belong to specific gear locks. You're going to get some nice weighty poker chips that have all of the stats for the baddies that you're going to fight. Now, I have upgraded my health chips. These are actually the Cloudspire health chips, but I had extra ones, so I just used the upgraded health chips. The ones that come with the game are a little bit less weighty than the standard Chip Theory health chips, but they're still good just the same. You've got effect dice and lock dice, and then some more character dice. Now, whenever I said that everything was overly produced, I wasn't kidding. Even these boxes for the cards are made out of a PVC material. The cards themselves, also PVC. I know that some people have complained that it makes them hard to shuffle. I have not found that to be the case. And as a persistent card sleever, I don't feel the need to sleeve these cards. They're completely durable. Then at the bottom, you're going to get your battle mat and your Gearlock mats, which are on this really nice neoprene material with stitched edges so they don't come apart and fray after use. Each of your gear locks has a section for all of their skill dice as you earn them, as well as their statistics and their active and lock slots, as well as their backup plan. Whenever you fail a roll in Too Many Bones, you get a bones dice, which can later be cashed in for your backup plan. In the core game, you get Boomer, who, if you were going to equate to a role in an RPG, would be closest to a mage, even though she's not magical in any way, but the things that she does would be very analogous to a wizard. You're going to get Patches, who would be close to a cleric. You're going to get Picket, who would be like a fighter. And you're going to get Tantrum, who would be your typical barbarian. Then you have your battle mat, which is where all your battles are going to take place, with this handy initiative tracker on the side. In addition, you're going to get several PVC reference cards. You're getting one for each gear lock. They are double-sided. And you're going to get ones for all the skills and the different rules of the game to make the game flow better. That may seem like a lot of information, and it is. learning a new gear lock in Too Many Bones is almost learning a new game for most typical board games. But the depth that you get from that learning experience is going to pay off in the end, and you will enjoy it immensely if you have the time to dedicate to it. Okay, so at this point you already own the core box, presumably, and you want to expand your options. This is where Undertow is going to come in. Undertow is going to add more baddies, more gear locks, and a new way to do battles, being that you can fight on the water as well. The two gear locks that you will find in Undertow are going to be Stanza and Duster. Duster is actually one of the tyrants from the original game, and she is here as a playable gear lock. This is going to cover the same rules content as the original rule book, and some have said that it is a little bit better laid out. I find them to be about the same. Just like the core game, you're going to get nice PVC boxes with your loot and your encounter cards. You're going to get your trays with your attack dice, your status dice, your character dice. You're going to get these nice containers with your baddie chips, as well as the chips for your gear locks, and then you're going to get some health chips. At the bottom, you're also going to find your neoprene mats for your gear locks, as well as the mat for the battles. So there is Duster and Stanza. Duster is kind of like the rogue, Stanza is like the bard. This is a double-sided battle mat because you can fight on the raft or you can fight on the ground. And then, of course, you're going to get your standard array of PVC reference cards, just like in the core box. So, like I said, this is an entry point for Too Many Bones. It is a little bit cheaper, and some of the choices made clearly make you think that this was an improvement to the system. However, because Stanza is one of the more difficult gear locks to play, and by buying this, you limit the number of players that you can have because you only have 2 gear locks, as well as the number of different baddies and tyrants that you can fight. I feel like for the difference in price, the core box is still going to be your best bet if you're going to play this for a while. And let's face it, if you're not going to play this for a while, you probably don't want to spend $130 on a game anyways. So at $90, I find this to be probably your most effective use of money for an expansion to the core game after you've gotten into it. And that's why I would have this as my second purchase. So after you've bought the core game and presumably you've picked up Undertow as an expansion, where to next? The next stop for me would be some hero packs. I wouldn't buy all of them. I would buy the ones that appeal to you, and I'd do a little research first to make sure that they're going to be something you want to play. You have Nugget, who is kind of a weird one. She is a fighter, but she has some abilities to help you find extra treasure. Not a big fan. You got Dart. Dart rides on a boar, and while the boar is cute, I found her playstyle to not be that enjoyable for me. Gilly. Gilly is your ranger. He has some cool pets, which don't work that well in play. He does a ton of damage, and he has some neat traps. Gilly is definitely going to be beginner friendly, and he's a lot of fun to play, so he's one that you might want to consider. Gasket. Gasket is very well loved in the Too Many Bones community. He's kind of a tank, and he is a robot. So he's immune to a lot of the different effects in the game because of that. That being said, he plays very differently from most of the other gear locks, so he might not be great for a beginner, but if you want a little extra challenge, he would be a cool one to check out. Now we're on to the lab rats. The lab rats I found to be extremely challenging to grok how they should be playing, and I didn't find them all that fun to play, so those would be a buy at your own risk kind of purchase. And here we are to my favorite. This is Tink. Tink is probably not the best beginner gear lock, but he is by far my favorite gear lock because you get to build robots with him and then use them as pets as you battle. And I'm going to use him as my example of what comes in these gear lock add-on packs so that you can see kind of what comes in each of them without having to go through the tedium of opening each of them. You open them up, there's a lot of unused space. You get a tray with your gear lock dice and a chip that you can represent your gear lock with on the battle mat. You also get, of course, his neoprene mat that has his skill slots and all of the rest. And you get the double-sided PVC reference sheet, which for Tink, honestly, is probably not going to be enough to learn him. I would highly suggest watching Liz Davidson's How to Play Tink guide to get your grip on the bot builder, but those are the gear locks available currently. There's going to be some more coming out with the Unbreakable campaign. So let's say you've bought all the extra gear locks you want, and you've played all of the encounters in Undertow and Too Many Bones, the core game, and you still want more content. Well, you're in luck because there's already 2 content expansions that are going to be suitable for you. Now that being said, there's going to be more coming with the Unbreakable campaign as that launches. But first off, you have 40 Days in Daylore. 40 Days in Daylore is going to give you some basic encounter cards. You're going to get a few special baddies that you can use in your regular games. It comes with a card box, and it comes with a reference sheet to cover some of the new rules that are on the baddies. Now, it runs about $30, and to me, this was a pass if I was going to have to choose to not pick something up, because there's really so many encounters already. By the time that you get through the core game and Undertow, you're really not going to be running into the same encounters all the time. So this one's kind of a pass for me. Now this is something else. This is the way to have a true campaign experience. Now, Too Many Bones for role players, it's almost like playing an entire role-playing campaign in one sitting anyways, because you're starting at zeros, you're going to heroes, and you're fighting the big tyrant at the end of every game. But what this does is it strings together multiple tyrant battles over a course of sessions in order to create a true campaign experience. Well, that's really cool. That's not the reason why I think that you should buy this. Age of Tyranny adds all the components you need to have that campaign experience, but where it really shines is it adds new day 1 to 3 encounters. Because in the core Too Many Games box, days 1 through 3 are always the same. When you're talking about an 11-day game, that means that you're going to be repeating the same quarter of the game most games unless you have this. And so by adding 21 new day 1 through 3 encounters, it adds some much needed variety into that first part of the game. Also, if you are interested in playing the campaign and you have the time to do that, this has a really neat save sheet that you can keep your gear lock information in, so that you can save your progress from tyrant battle to tyrant battle. And so for that reason, Age of Tyranny would be a great purchase at $30. There are some random other things. There are some specialty products like the Gearlock Child. They have a mat that is 2-sided that shows a map of Obendar. But other than that, that's about everything that is out for the game right now. Now, of course, with the Unbreakable campaign coming out, there is a bevy of new options coming. There's new gear locks, there's the core Unbreakable game itself. There's also Splice and Dice, which is a that is already out, that you can use to create new tyrants, and it is a mini game of itself. All of these things are optional, and by the time, honestly, that you get to this point, you're going to know whether you want those or not. But this gets you to kind of where you need to be to get started in Too Many Bones. And honestly, if I was just going to buy 3 things, I would get the core box, then I would get Undertow, and then I would get a single gear lock expansion, whichever one appealed to me. In my case, it's going to be Tink. And that is Too Many Bones. All right, so I made my destination. This is the original Dungeon Hobby Shop, now a museum. This is where TSR used to sell their products when Gary was first getting the company up and running here in Lake Geneva. And I have done a little video tour that I'm going to put at the end of the video, and hopefully you will enjoy this, and maybe you'll decide that you want to come up here and check this out. This has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Good gaming, and God bless.